Welcome. My name is Asanda, and this is the SMA channel where we defy all society's norms by keeping it real. So, guys, welcome to the 5th episode of Discussions That Grow the Mind. So, today we'll be discussing the art of arguments. Anyone who knows Asanda knows that Asanda is always down for a good argument. You know what the arguments I enjoy are? When me and my opponent are completely on opposite sides. And I feel people don't value arguing enough. Guys, arguments is the basis of growth. It's the basis of opening your perspective. If there's one thing I prioritize, is having an open mind and trying to be as objective as I can in life as much as possible. Because guys, the value that you extract from life is what you can gain from other people's perspective. Because one thing I've realized now, no one is entirely wrong. Everybody in their own right and in their own path believes that they're right. You are wrong to assume that someone else in their perspective is wrong because there's something for them that justifies why they're right. So my approach essentially to arguing is just trying my best to understand why it is that you believe in your point so much and why is it that I believe in mine so much. Where's the disconnect? What are we missing? And once you can get to the bottom of that, like, your mind literally grows because you don't conform to one way of thinking. And I think people need to prioritize arguing, and you need to understand that arguing is not just fire being thrown, you know? Arguing has an art, there's a structure, there's things that you do and don't do. The same way, if you go into war, there's principles and there's rules around it, and you just don't do certain things. Same with arguing. You just don't do certain things. You know that once you're presented with something, there's a certain way to rebuttal those certain things, right? So that's what I'll be outlining today. I've done an analysis on the most effective arguers that I've seen. I've taken notes just watching their arguments. I've done my research on, like, philosophies around arguing and, what's the best way to have an effective, good, juicy argument. Let's get into it. Number one, I think this is the most important part of an argument. Ensure that your argument is an argument of good faith. Ensure that you have one goal in mind and it is of good faith, and both parties realize that we are going for this one thing, but we are on different sides currently, but we both have the same destination. Because if you argue with someone who's trying to attack you, whereas you're trying to find a resolution, you will never have a productive argument because you're not going for one thing.
And about African Americans, you have said this: you are not African, but we play along. It's a very loose term, African American, because half the time you use it for people who aren't even African. As long as you're black, they say African American.
I didn't deliver it like that. You're not doing my jokes justice.
Okay, all right, yeah, I'm not Trevor Noah and I'm not a comedian.
No, but you see,
satirist. But I'm just asking, are they not African American?
Here's what you're missing. What you're doing right now is the equivalent of me saying, you can always be my friend, standing under my umbrella, Ella, 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 A, Ella, 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 A. I seem like a mad person right now because I'm not doing everything that was within the context of the song Umbrella by Rihanna. When you were doing comedy merely by words, I spoke it. My eyes, my voice, my connection with an audience is completely different. People can see when you are being playful. People can see when you are saying something.
So you're being playful about that?
That you don't believe. That is what satire is, though.
Fine.
You're poking holes.
So you're
So in that...
you don't believe what you say, though?
No.
Number two is that in your argument, ensure that both you and the other party understand that nobody is attacking each other. Because the problem comes in that when you feel you are being attacked, egos come in. And once the ego is involved in an argument, there is no winning. Absolutely no winning. Because once you have your ego, you have taken out logic from the situation. An argument without logic has no basis. It's no basis. There's no productivity whatsoever. Ensure that you are constantly reassuring your party, the second party, that you are not attacking them and that your arguments are made out of the point that you believe to be true.
One thing you always go back to is redlining, and that's it's great. I mean, FDR. But I just whenever if you have to, let me finish my statement.
You see why I have to
if you
talk,
ever have to go all the way back to the 1930s.
Because you got to be quick. Back to the 1930s. Black people. No, I don't have to be quick.
It's very simple.
Actually, if you want to teach me how to shoot, talk about shooting cop. If you want to talk to me about making a point, then you need to look at my law school education.
Okay, but
we're not in the
courtroom right now. You couldn't get educated.
Listen to what I'm saying.
You just said you couldn't get educated.
Black
so
people.
Which is it?
With that said, the importance of always knowing your point and your opponent's point is that you can track how much progress you're making in the argument, right? And if your argument is not developing and you're on the same points and you're not reaching each other, you're not seeing each other's perspectives, your argument will never be productive. If it becomes blurry and you can no longer see what the points are necessarily, it might be a sign that you're basically attacking or you're being attacked, because your points are not evolving, you're not growing, you're not coming to agreements. There's no productivity in the arguments. Next is that you use the Socratic method. So the Socratic method is a philosophy developed by Socrates. I don't want to tell his story, but you can do the research on your own. But essentially, the principle is that you ask as much questions as you can, because the basis of having a productive argument is that you understand both sides, and with understanding comes progress. With understanding comes mental growth. With understanding comes your perspective widening, right? So in an argument, try to mostly ask questions. Ask as much as you can, because this is where the real growth actually comes in, right? And to supplement that is that you actually have to listen. Many times in arguments, people, again, it comes down to the ego. Keep your ego in check, guys. Keep your ego in check and ensure that you are listening. Because oftentimes people just don't get to the bottom of arguments because they're not listening. Don't disregard your opponent's points, because that triggers the ego again, right? Because when you disregard your opponent's point, you're showing them that you're basically not acknowledging the value that they bring into the argument, and that puts people into defense mode automatically. So you can never win. Again, principle. You will never win an argument that involves ego, because the ego will never lose. So do not argue with ego, argue with logic.
What is your answer to young people for some of the really big problems facing humanity, like the climate catastrophe, like economic crisis, like the precarious job market? Because they just don't, like, you talk all this much about individual responsibility. Most of us are never going to be able to afford to have all of these assets to have responsibility over. So what is your advice beyond banal comments like clean your room?
It's actually rather difficult to answer a question that ends with your comments are banal politely. I would consider that more of an opinionated personal and political statement than actually a question. So why don't you try reformulating that so that there's an actual question there?
So what is your advice to young people when you talk about you need to be individually responsible, but when there are things that are so far out of our control, like climate catastrophe, like the precarious job economy, like the economic crisis?
Out of your control as you think.
What is your answer to
Do you think that you're worse off than
you
think that you're worse off than your grandparents?
I think there are different challenges.
Do you think you're worse off than your grandparents? I'm a psychologist, and my experience has been that people can do a tremendous amount of good for themselves and for the people who are immediately around them by looking to their own inadequacies and their own flaws and the things that they're not doing in their lives and starting to build themselves up as more powerful individuals.
I think the biggest takeaway and the biggest thing that people refuse, and I think it's because most people argue with ego, is that changing your mind in the middle of the argument is not wrong, guys. That's the basis of an argument. That's how you grow your perspective and you grow your mind. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to change your mind halfway because the person said something that resonated with you, and now you can evolve as a person, can be like, okay, my point is valid, but like I didn't consider this, therefore this is my new perspective, and that's okay. That is perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind. In fact, I feel like people who are able to change their minds are the one that is emotionally mature.
My opinion right now, and is just that it was a means, because forget the fact of whether you believe global warming is real. Let's say it's 100% real. Let's say we know for a fact it's real. Is there a way?
Well, let's be clear.
Yeah.
Global warming, climate change is definitely real. It's happening.
Well,
the question is, why has it happened? Yes, it has always happened.
So what is the climate change? Yes, the climate changes. It was different weather yesterday than it was today. The climate is forever changing. Like that's the problem, is that people are making it seem like that's something weird.
No,
that's
not. You're misrepresenting the issue. The issue is people think that human beings are exacerbating climate change to the point where there's a tipping point. We cross over that tipping point. We're going to deal with huge problems that could be corrected if we act now and put a lot of funding into climate control. And that what we have to be really careful of is letting it get too far where you can't ever stop it and pull it back. This is what scientists are warning about.
So let's say we all agree that global warming is real. I don't believe it's real. Okay, so I can't sit here.
But here's the question. But why have a belief?
What do you mean?
Why have a belief as to whether or not global warming is real or not real?
Because I just find that when things
you don't understand the science.
You are correct.
But why have a belief in it?
Right. So it's not a belief. It's not a belief in it. I don't believe in it.
But that's what I'm saying. But you have a belief that it doesn't exist.
Right.
Nothing like sabotages an argument more than the ego, guys. Like nothing sabotages growth more than your ego. If you can maintain a stoic, calm sense of self where you can understand that even if you lose the argument, it has nothing to do with your self-worth, has nothing to do with how smart you are, it has nothing to do with you as a person. There's nothing that beats Stoicism when arguing. Stoicism essentially is you being able to regulate and control your emotions when you're in an argument. So you can keep your ego in check when you are having an argument. You will never lose if you can be stoic. Even if you lose your argument, it's not a lose because you have gained another perspective, you have grown, you know? So stoicism is the key to a good argument. Now to the next part. The most important thing is to know when to stop. Because guys, sometimes, yes, arguments can be productive, but sometimes they can be more detrimental than they are productive. And you as a person who is arguing, as a stoic person who asks questions and is not attacking their opponent, you need to be able to know where to draw the line. You need to be able to know when to stop and when your argument is no longer serving you or serving the other person that you're arguing with, right? Now, when you sense that the person has cognitive dissonance, right? I know I'm using big words, but this is how it's defined, right? When the person starts backing their argument with non-logical things, that's when you know you need to stop. And when the person can't admit that they're wrong, even though they are wrong, you need to stop.
Where's the pictures from NASA? How come they don't have any?
They don't have that space.
They don't have the technology?
No, they just never did it.
They also don't give a fuck about proving it's round.
These Japanese pictures, I've seen them. Put them up.
They don't have that kind of
Show me a real picture. Show me a real picture.
Listen, NASA does not have one of those satellites.
Fake.
Why do you think that's fake?
That's fake as f***.
Why does it look fake?
It looks something you'd see in a movie.
That's because when they do it in a movie, they try to make it look like this, which is what looks real.
If that's real to you, man, shit.
You don't think it's real?
They faked 6 moon landings.
Stop saying that because it's irrelevant. We're not talking about the same people.
It looks fake to me.
Eddie, that's 1969. We're talking about 2017.
That looks fake as
think there's some gigantic conspiracy involving the Japanese government where they put up a fake picture of the Earth from 22,000 miles up every 10 minutes. High resolution, downloadable photo. You think it's fake? Is there a photo of this flat Earth?
No, like I just said again. There's no photo of the flat Earth from space. There's no photo of the round Earth from space.
That's not true. That's not true.
It's all fake.
No, why do you say they're fake, though?
They look fake. They look CGI.
But you're not an expert in imagery.
And despite Rogan's best attempts trying to convince Eddie the Earth is round, things would continue to heat up when Jamie pulled up an article disproving one of Eddie's points.
So this thing that you keep repeating is
Okay.
and this thing that you keep but don't. No.
Hey, where did you get this information?
Jamie.
Where'd you get it?
Where'd I get what?
This information. What is this coming from?
It's coming off the internet.
Exactly. So you're reading some information. I'm reading some information off the internet. You didn't go to the library. Oh, it's on Wikipedia?
Eddie, just slow down.
Eddie, stop doing
There's sources here. There's a book called the American Journal of Science. I'm sure that a lot of people respect
Which is bought and paid for.
Well, maybe.
It is. It's bought and paid for. It's part of that.
Here's the thing, Eddie.
It's like the Washington Post.
Eddie,
no,
Eddie, they're not. They're not.
Huge.
They're not getting knocked down. That's why we just read this thing that you've been citing, and you didn't even understand it when we were reading it. But that's how
read off the internet.
I read it off the internet too.
I read it off the internet too.
I don't have any books here. I'll go find the encyclopedia.
And number 3 is when you realize that your opponent is just not listening. Guys, there's nothing you can do to someone who's hard-headed and does not want to listen. And to protect your ego and to protect theirs, just end the argument, because if you're not listening to each other's points, it's not going to go anywhere.
White people, wait for it. White people happen to be from a bunch of other places in the world. What I'm saying is it almost makes more sense to have the descriptive word before white people. So if you had Black African American, you could have European American for white people, or Australian American for white people, or fucking Argentine American for white people, or South American American, whatever the fuck you want to say it. I guess what I'm saying is because it's not as self-explanatory for us.
What's interesting is that some people would say what you just did is a form of white supremacy, and I'll tell you why.
No, it's because you haven't paid attention for the last 10 minutes, and it's driving me crazy. I'm making the argument.
Yes, but listen.
No, you're not listening, and it's starting to fucking drive me crazy. I'm making the argument
that all black people are from Africa.
No.
You just said that.
The oppressive term.
Yes.
Okay. African American is in some ways oppressive because it acts as if the black people that are in America, right, aren't just Americans. They're from Africa. Asian Americans, African Americans. Why is it the white people just get to be American and then all these other people are Mexican American, Asian American, whatever? Okay? What I'm saying is...
They do say white Americans.
Oh my God, you're not listening again. So that's fine. Nobody says white American.
And lastly, when you realize your point is no longer valid, your argument is no longer valid, that is when you decide that, okay, and it needs an emotionally mature person as well. Like, you need to be able to stop and say, okay, I see my point is wrong, let me leave it because I am wrong. And that takes someone who's very strong, right? Those essentially are the principles that need to be kept when you are having an argument, and you need to ensure that that argument is as productive as possible. So I hope that you guys will take what I've said today and you'll implement it, and you'll argue as much as possible, because guys, argument is the best way to grow your perspective. It is the best way to gain wisdom. It is the best way to gain knowledge, and I think people take it for granted these days. So just know that you are arguing productively and you are implementing these principles that I've listed to you guys today. I hope you have enjoyed the video, and you will be coming back. Subscribe, leave a like, and yeah, bye.